This is the railway station at Bełżec in southeastern Poland. It's quite an old railway station. It dates back to Austrian times. It was a border station between Austria and Russia, and that's why it's so big, so many lines here. In fact, today it's only a goods station, but it was a passenger station until quite not such a long time ago. Now, there was a very large engine shed over there which was destroyed quite recently. I think it was pulled down after a fire or something like that. Last time I was here it was still standing, and the engine shed is particularly noted for the role it played during the Second World War. The clothes of the people who had been murdered at the Bełżec death camp were actually stored there, and they were then sent to the Lublin airfield, which is not so far from Majdanek in Lublin, and they were stored there and sent to wherever they were going. Gerstein mentions it in the amount of clothing which almost reached the roof, and it was a very tall building. It was used for the engine shed. I presume the Austrians didn't want to send their engines into Russia or something like that, or maybe the Russians, well, probably couldn't use them anyway because the railway lines were different. Anyway, so that was from them. Now, during the Second World War, when this was a death camp here, the death camp was only a few hundred metres down there. The passengers, the victims, I should say, were offloaded in the camp itself. They weren't actually brought off at the railway station. At Helmlin nad Nerem, the passengers actually did get off at the railway station and were accompanied to the camp where they were then murdered. In this case, as in Treblinka, as in Sobibor, it was a branch line that went into the camp. But when the transports did come here, often the transports had to wait, and it was difficult for the Nazis to plan how many people would be killed, because the apparatus, the murder apparatus, kept breaking down, and so people could be in the trains for days. And this is how some people in Bełżec made their fortunes. There was one person known as the Bełżec millionaire. I believe he's no longer alive, but he during the Second World War, he sold water and food to people who was waiting in the trains. They could pass things through the holes in the window slits, I should say, rather than the holes in the side of the wagons, and that's how. And people in those circumstances perhaps realised they were going to die anyway, weren't too pleased to pay what would have been a fortune for a sip of water or something like that. And anyway, so that was the trains mainly waited, I think, rather down there rather than here, though I've spoken to people who told me of trains waiting on the far lines here as well. But when the trains were here, of course, this place was absolutely covered with SS. That's what the locals told me, both Germans and Ukrainians. They were travelling. The station here, the building of the station, dates to around 1997, 98, I think, maybe even later, and so it can't have seen much passenger traffic as such, because the passenger line was withdrawn sometime towards the end of the century, last century. And I came down here on a rather exciting journey in November 1995. I bought a ticket in Poznan, at the railway station in Poznan, and the person who served me said that he'd been working there for more than 20 years, and no one ever bought a ticket to Bełżec. In fact, he didn't know where it was, and he asked somebody else for assistance who also didn't know where it was. I explained to him where Bełżec was. Anyway, they were quite pleased to sell me the ticket, I think. I took a train from Poznan to Wrocław, had to change in Wrocław, and in Wrocław, it was on the station, there was a little sign that said Bełżec, so they were aware of things, and it was only one carriage of the train. I can't remember where the rest of the carriage was going, where the rest of the train was going to, if it was going to Rzeszów or to Lwów or to, I've got a feeling like even going to Sanok or somewhere down south, in southeast Przemysl, I can't remember now. And it was November and it was pretty cold, and there was only 3 of us in the carriage, and there was two passengers. I think the other one was going to Jeju, was me going to, oh, he wasn't going all the way as I was, and the conductor, the person who looked after the sleeping car, and he was really cheesed off because of the lack of facilities on the train. It's freezing cold, and he said he wasn't going to take our tickets until they turned the heating on. But anyway, so we 3 of us sort of sat in the corridor, a rather odd place to sit really, considering there was plenty of seats, and the conductor passed cigarettes round, and obviously I didn't take them, but the other gentleman did, and it was a nice atmosphere. I had three men together. And anyway, the heating came on eventually. I think the train was pretty late. And then what happened was we set off, and I had a good night's sleep. I can sort of just remember half asleep that the train being uncoupled somewhere and coupled again. But eventually it got here. Now I'd left Poznan, I think it was probably 6 or 7. I think in Wrocław it would have been about 8ish. I think, I can't remember now. So, but we arrived here, it was around 8:30 in the morning, and from here I had to get a bus to Tomaszów. So this was November 1995. And what the strange thing was, is that the train actually stopped, what seemed to me like in an open field, not at the station itself, but somewhere down here. And I got off the station, and walked across what effectively was to me a field. And it looks today quite similar to what it looks like then. And from there I asked somebody, got a bus to Tomaszów, and everything was okay. Now when I came back, what stood out to me was the open fire in the railway station in the waiting room, which I thought had a certain attractiveness of its own. And I remember I paid 50 zloty for the taxi from Tomaszów to here, which rather shocked the person I was seeing, that I could actually spend so much money on getting a taxi unnecessarily in her view. And so the train would have been somewhere around here. Today we've got the wood being loaded onto the train. It's quite unusual really, because it's something similar you see at Sobibor as well. Though maybe not quite as much and as advanced as it is here. It was even further down the track where I got off. It must be here. Anyway, so I walked across here somewhere, and it was there I got the bus. Anyway, so it's now June, it's the 18th of June 2013, so there's memories from 18 years ago, as well as a bit of history from 71 years ago. And this station today, other than that, is probably waiting for somebody to come along and take the rails away, as they did when I was a small child in the village I lived in and the area I lived in. The railways aren't much use today, and we all say it's a pity, but none of us use the railways to keep them in business, so what can we expect really? That can be seen, but there's plenty of cargo going out there. I mean, it's the amount of wood on that. In front of the former death camp, there's now like there's a wood factory, there's a business there. Now, there always was something, but this it seems to have been it's privatised, and seems to be producing quality materials.